Despite what the cover would have you believe, the girls don't go to the Statue of Liberty in this book. So you could say they do sleep before they see all of it.
Argo Funk Book Review, Argo Funk Book Review.
This book was written by Anne Martin. Claudia is the narrator, so we start the book with 5 full pages of Claudia's handwriting. I read it all, so you don't have to. You're welcome. The story is that Claudia is going to take art classes in New York with famous artist Mackenzie Clark. The classes will take place during a 2-week vacation from school. This is what, the 3rd 2-week vacation they've had so far this year? I'm surprised these kids ever learn anything. Anyway, the babysitters have somehow managed to turn Claudia takes an art class into everybody gets a free New York vacation. Wow, these girls are master negotiators. Either that or their parents are dying for any excuse to get rid of them. Hard to tell. Kristy narrates as they take a train into New York. She reminds everybody of book 18. Ugh, that book was awful. My main problem with that book is that all the girls were given new, annoying personalities. For example, shy Marianne, who never talks, became a history buff who never shuts up, while super confident Dawn became a huge crybaby. It made no sense why the girls changed so drastically. I'm sorry to say that in this book, Marianne and Dawn once again take up their out-of-character personalities. Yuck. Stacey's dad doesn't have a 9-person apartment, so they decide to split up into 2 groups. Dawn, Stacey, and Claudia will stay with Dad. The other 4 girls will stay with Stacey's friend Lane. In Lane's building, they meet some British diplomats named the Harringtons. The Harringtons need somebody to babysit their kids for the next 2 weeks. Oh, wow, what a crazy coincidence. Marianne and Stacey take the job because it basically means they're getting paid to be tourists. Scaredy cat Dawn can't walk down the street without screaming. She screams over a candy bar wrapper, a loud noise, and a man in a hat. She doesn't get any sleep that night because she's too frightened of burglars on the fire escape. The other babysitters have a serious talk with Dawn about her feelings, and just kidding. They make snide comments about how she's such a wimp, and none of them invite Dawn to come along on their activities. So Dawn hides inside all day long. The Babysitters Club! The best friends you'll ever have. Okay, to be fair, Kristy does spend a few hours with Dawn after lunch, but for the rest of the week, they leave her alone in the apartment and nobody cares. These girls are jerks. Stacey and Marianne take the kids to Central Park. They see the animals and the statues, and Stacey has fun people watching. She says that's a great thing about New York. You can look at people. She knows there are people in other cities, right? Stacey also brags that the zoo admission in Central Park will always be 10 cents. I checked online and, sorry Stacey, the price has gone up considerably. Claudia goes to the art class along with Mallory. Mackenzie doesn't make for a very good teacher. He ignores the students, he interrupts them, and he gives them orders all the time. He forces everybody to draw boxes for days on end. He compliments Mallory for trying hard, and he criticizes Claudia for going too fast. Claudia spends the rest of the book in a jealous huff, and she says nasty things about Mallory at every possible opportunity. It's honestly not that different from how she normally treats Mallory, so none of the other girls notice. Jessi's parents have forbidden her from traveling around New York by herself. She needs a chaperone at all times because she's only 11. The other girls ignore this rule, and they leave the apartment without her. That means Jessi is forced to stay inside all day. Geez, first they abandoned Dawn, now they abandon Jessi? New York really turns these girls into deserters. Luckily, Jessi manages to get Marianne's attention at the last minute, and she gets a ride to a ballet performance. In the audience, she meets a gorgeous black guy named Quint. He also does ballet, and he's good enough to get into Juilliard, which is a college. Why is an 11-year-old getting into college? This premise is ridiculous. But Quint says, oh no, he can't go there. Not because he's too young, but because all the boys on his block tease him for dancing. Mallory's chapter is unremarkable, much like she is. She has a tough time drawing art, and Claudia insults her constantly. Then everybody has dinner in Chinatown. Kristy complains about Dawn, and she goes to Central Park. She finds a dog in the bushes, and she decides to keep it. The girls sneak the dog into Lane's room. Kristy calls her parents at home, but they refuse to adopt a random stray. Uh-oh! Marianne takes the kids to a library and a museum. She notices a bunch of men in sunglasses and rain hats. She mentions this to Stacey, who doesn't care about men unless they're hot. Marianne eventually realizes, wait, she hasn't been seeing a lot of men in the matching outfits. She's been seeing the same man over and over. Is he following them? Dawn is sad that nobody wants to stay with her, and she prepares to spend yet another day watching TV. That's when the doorbell rings. It's a boy named Richie Magnesi. He's also stuck inside the apartment due to a broken leg. Dawn thinks Richie is cute, especially his little rat tail. Ew. The two of them talk for a while, and he says the problem is that Dawn doesn't know the real New York. Instead of visiting famous places, she needs to visit different famous places, like the Battery, or Green Witch, or that one taco cart. Richie takes Dawn on a grand tour of all of those spots, and she loves them so much, she hearts New York, and she forgets to be scared. The next art class is a repeat of the earlier ones. Mackenzie criticizes Claudia for working too quickly, while he praises Mallory. Claudia sulks instead of following her teacher's instructions. I'm pretty sure that won't solve your problems, Claudia. Jessi calls Quint and she goes to his house. Before she leaves, Lane makes sure to get Quint's name, address, phone number, and maybe his social security number, just in case.
It's just safer, Jessi. Trust me. Someone should always know where you are.
Because I'm 11?
No, it doesn't have anything to do with your age. If I visit a new friend, my mom or dad does exactly what I'm doing now.
So wait, let me get this straight. The girls are allowed to go anywhere they want and do anything they want with no adult supervision. But if they go to somebody's house, then they need permission? I do not understand these rules. And why does everybody else make fun of Dawn for not wanting to go anywhere alone when Jessi is the exact same way? Jessi and Quint watch old movies and have a great time until they leave the building. All the neighborhood boys make fun of Quint mercilessly. Quint says this is why he can't be a professional dancer. Jessi tells him he can't let jerks stop him from doing what he wants. Stacey's dad takes them on a boat tour. The mystery man reappears and Marianne worries he's a kidnapper. Stacey says they can't tell the Harringtons that a guy is following them everywhere because she's an irresponsible babysitter. Lane's parents discover Kristy's hiding a dog in their apartment. They force Kristy to find the dog a new owner. She takes it to the vet and puts up flyers. A young boy named Brandon calls and he adopts the dog. Marianne and Stacey see the mystery man a few more times. They start to get worried for the children's safety and they tell the Harringtons about him at the end of the week. It turns out that the mystery man is their bodyguard, Bill. He's there to protect the children. The Harringtons didn't tell the babysitters about Bill because they are jerks who enjoy scaring babysitters for no reason. I mean, they wanted the kids to think they were having a real holiday. In the last art class, Claudia gets fed up with Mackenzie telling her to slow down all the time, so she works on the same picture for 3.5 hours. This picture finally gets his approval. Mackenzie apologizes for being so hard on Claudia. He says he pushed her hard because she's the best student with the most potential. Claudia is overjoyed that her art hero thinks she's the best, and it's a happy ending for her. As for Mallory, you know how every book says Mallory likes writing? Well, this is the first book where she actually does some story writing. 3 years of build-up, all for this moment. Mallory writes and draws a story about a mouse named Ryan. Then she talks with Mackenzie. He tells her her art can improve if she puts a lot of effort into it, but no matter how hard she tries, she'll never match Claudia's natural talent. In other words, it'd be better if Mallory never does art again. Claudia will always beat her without even trying. Mallory would normally be upset to hear something like this, but she just decided she likes storytelling more than art, so she walks away happy. Jessi's final chapter starts with a very blank page. I know the journal entries at the start of every chapter are just an excuse to waste space, but still, that is some pretty blatant page wasting. Jessi and Quint see a ballet together, and she gives them a passionate speech about overcoming discrimination. Quint is inspired, and he decides to go to Juilliard after all. As Jessi leaves, Quint gives her her first kiss. She promises to stay in touch with him, and I'm told she does see him again in book 115. So, 7 years from now? We finish the book in style. The girls rent out a limo, they go to a famous restaurant, and they watch a play. Oh, and of course they go shopping. Afterwards, they reluctantly go back home to Stony Brook. The end. Post-book follow-up. I'm going to be honest, I didn't like this book. It felt like 200 pages from New York publishers bragging about how great their city is. That annoyed me in general, but in particular, I was annoyed at how the book assumes readers already know every location in New York. The book name drops a bunch of places that I've never heard of before, but it rarely bothers to explain what the places are like or why they're famous. So Richie's grand tour ends up being little more than a list of names to me, and it comes across as slightly pretentious. I know I'm being overly critical here, considering that the book is a travelogue, but it's a personal pet peeve of mine, which I developed after reading all those Nancy Drew Hardy Boys books, which also assume you're in love with New York and know the local geography. One of the ads in the back of this book promises a mysterious event later this year. I wonder what that could refer to. Oh, whoa! We're getting a mystery series? Well, then, I guess I have to add 38 more books to my reading list. My baby is going to be all grown up by the time I finish this series, isn't she? This book is illustrated by Anne Martin's father, Henry. Gee, I wish I had relatives that gave me jobs. The pictures are mostly of famous buildings in New York, including some that don't appear in this book, like the Empire State Building and the Brooklyn Bridge and Times Square. I wonder if those places were originally going to appear at some point, or if Henry just drew whatever he wanted. Normally in the super specials, everyone gets 3 chapters each. I noticed that Kristy gets 4 chapters, while Mallory only gets 2. She stole one of Mallory's chapters! I noticed that this cover is where they took the pictures of Dawn and Mallory, which are on the cover of every other book in the series. Is that the best Dawn picture of the entire series? The best Mallory picture? I like the Dawn picture, yeah, that's good, but the Mallory one, not so much. Okay, time to talk about the storylines. I thought Kristy's storyline was average. It's a good idea, and there are funny parts with them trying to keep the dog a secret. Still, I didn't much enjoy it. I thought it was a by-the-numbers lost dog story. I think the problem is that the best part of the story is them trying to hide the dog, but there's a week-long gap in between 2 of Kristy's chapters. The book skips over the part that I liked most. There's also a time jump which skips over most of the search for a new owner. I don't know, maybe this is the same problem I've talked about with other super specials. 3 chapters is not long enough to fully start, develop, and finish a storyline. I know I would have liked Kristy's story if it was developed more. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we have Mary Anne and Stacey's storyline. That did not need to be stretched out into 6 chapters. 4 would have been enough. And I found it annoying how they deliberately stretched things out by not telling the Harringtons about the mystery man. They should have told the parents the instant they thought the kids were in danger. But no, they put it off as long as possible. I also disliked the storyline because Mary Anne and Stacey acted the same way. It was like reading the same thing twice. I don't want to hear the same events from Stacey's perspective if her perspective is identical to Mary Anne's. Plus, most of their story was spent visiting famous places which don't get described in detail, which I complained about earlier. They easily could have improved this by giving Mary Anne the babysitting job and by giving Stacey a story with Lane. Lane is surprisingly absent from this book, considering that most of the girls live with her. She disappears every day and we never get told where she went. What does she do all day? Why doesn't she want to spend time with the others? Claudia and Mallory's art class also gets dragged out longer than necessary. Claudia waits 2 weeks to talk to her teacher about the issues that rose up on the first day of class. I thought it was realistic and interesting how Claudia was jealous of Mallory, but to be honest, I didn't like reading it. She came across as petty. Mallory's storyline was good, or at least I thought it was good how Mackenzie tried to let Mallory down gently. Mallory handled it like a champ, deciding not to let her art problems get to her, but instead she plays to her strengths. Good for you, Mallory. But I have to admit, I thought it was a cop-out ending. The only reason Mallory suddenly becomes obsessed with writing is because she needs something to fall back on. They should have introduced her love of writing a lot sooner, because it came out of nowhere. Dawn's storyline was bad. She's out of character and everyone acts like they hate her. Nobody even notices when she stops being scared of New York. Plus, Dawn's vacation boyfriend was rather pushy. Jessi's vacation boyfriend, on the other hand, was great! So great, he actually appears in the main series after this. I like seeing Jessi and Quint interact with each other, and it had a nice moral about sticking to your convictions in the face of discrimination. I like that. Overall, I didn't like the book. I liked Jessi's story, and I half liked some of the other stories, but the majority of the book does not work for me. I dream of a super special where every storyline is a winner, instead of 2 vacation boyfriend storylines, 2 art class storylines, 2 babysitting storylines, and a dog. Some variety would have greatly improved this book. The way the book is now, I don't want to be a part of it. I give Babysitters Club Super Special number 6, New York, New York, a 2 out of 10.